I never thought I would be in this position, but here I am, sitting in my parents' living room, looking at my two beautiful children, and feeling more at peace than I have in years. It's funny how things can change in the blink of an eye. One moment, I was a stay-at-home mom, trying to balance everything while supporting my family. The next, I was in a situation I never could have imagined. A simple comment, followed by a lack of support from my husband, set off a chain of events that led to the end of my marriage. I'm 30 years old, and I have been married to Rob for 6 years. We have two children, Paxton, who is 6, and Susie, who is 4. Being a stay-at-home mom is both rewarding and exhausting. I love taking care of my kids and watching them grow, but the responsibility of managing everything at home was overwhelming at times. Rob worked a demanding job that required long hours, and when he came home, he mostly retreated to his man cave, his gaming room. On weekends, he'd disappear for hours to hang out with his friends, leaving me with the kids, the housework, and everything else. I used to try to talk to Rob about this. I would ask him for help, but he often made excuses. He needed to unwind after a stressful week, and the idea of hiring a babysitter so I could take some time for myself was met with refusal. "It's a waste of money," he'd say. "After all, we had our kids at home, so why should we spend extra money on a babysitter?" When I got pregnant with Paxton, Rob encouraged me to quit my job and become a full-time stay-at-home mom. I was fine with that decision, but I thought that he would help out more around the house. Unfortunately, that never happened. I was doing everything: laundry, cooking, cleaning, picking up the kids from school, and it was becoming too much. But Rob was always busy, and I was left to manage everything on my own. This was when Rob's brother, Jack, entered the picture. Jack had been married to Sarah for 4 years, and they had 3 children together. Jack had an affair with a coworker, and when Sarah found out, she exposed everything to their boss. It was a huge scandal. Both Jack and his coworker lost their jobs, and Sarah demanded a divorce. She took the kids and made it clear that she wouldn't let Jack see them unless he agreed to the divorce. When Jack moved out, he had nowhere to go. Rob, being the kind-hearted brother that he is, offered for Jack to stay with us. He didn't even consult me first. I was furious when I found out, but Rob assured me that it would be temporary. I didn't want to create a rift in the family, so I reluctantly agreed. But 4 months passed, and Jack was still living with us. It wouldn't have been such a big deal if Jack wasn't the messiest person I had ever met. I mean, he was worse than Rob. He left dirty socks and underwear all over the place, abandoned dishes wherever he ate, and refused to do his laundry. It was like having a child in the house who couldn't clean up after himself. I'd had enough. My patience was wearing thin, and after trying multiple times to talk to Rob about it, I realized nothing was going to change unless I did something drastic. Rob would always defend his brother, saying Jack was going through a tough time and needed space to figure things out. But I was the one running the household. I was the one who had to clean up after him, and it was draining me. One weekend, Rob and Jack went out for their usual guys' night. They came home late as usual, and I put the kids to bed and cleaned up the house. But when I woke up the next morning, the house was a disaster. Beer bottles were scattered everywhere, and I had to clean it all up. After spending hours cleaning, I went to check on Rob and Jack, hoping that maybe I could finally get some help. That's when I found Jack asleep with a woman in our guest room. It was shocking. Not only was he bringing strangers into our home, but he was doing it while we had 2 young kids sleeping just down the hall. I felt betrayed, and I was done. I woke up Rob, but he just laughed it off. He said Jack needed to have fun after his divorce. That was the moment I realized that Rob was not going to support me or our family the way I needed him to. It wasn't just that he had no regard for the state of our home. He didn't care about how disrespectful this was to me or our children. I demanded that Jack leave. I couldn't do this anymore. I told Rob that this was our home, and it needed to be a place of stability for our kids. I thought Rob would understand, but after 3 days of no change, I realized that I was on my own in this. So, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I sent the kids to my parents for the day, hoping for a peaceful conversation. I cooked a big lunch, hoping it would set the right tone. When we sat down, I told Jack that it had been months since he moved in, and it was time for him to leave. I explained that it wasn't sustainable for me to keep taking care of him. I was exhausted, and I needed him to respect our home. But Jack didn't take it well. He started shouting, saying he had nowhere else to go. I remained calm, but firm. I told him that while I understood his situation, he needed to find another place to live. I couldn't keep living like this. That's when Jack said something that changed everything. He called me his housemaid and said he would pay me for my work. His words cut deep. But instead of getting angry, I saw an opportunity. I smiled politely and told him, "Sure, Jack. I'll be your housemaid, but only if you pay me." My husband was about to say something, but I raised my hand to stop him. I didn't need his help. I was going to handle this myself. Jack seemed surprised by my response, but I continued. "I'll clean your clothes, cook your meals, and clean up after you, just like a housemaid. But only if you stop throwing parties and bringing strangers into our home." Jack agreed, thinking he had won. But little did he know I had a plan. For the next few days, I took on all the housework. But I didn't do it perfectly. I started making little mistakes, putting a red sock in with the white laundry, burning dinner, misplacing his gaming console. And then the big accident happened. One weekend, when Jack was out with Rob, I let the kids play with his prized collection of vintage toy cars. The kids were rough with them, and some of the cars got damaged. When Jack came home and saw the damage, he lost it. He yelled at me for letting the kids into his sacred space. I tried my best to remain calm, but I could see the realization dawning on him. I wasn't just making mistakes. I was teaching him a lesson. Jack packed his things and left. Rob, however, was furious with me. He thought I had gone too far. He called me cruel and said I had humiliated his brother. His parents even called to complain, saying I had crossed the line. But I didn't care anymore. Rob's reaction only confirmed what I had been feeling for months. I wasn't respected in my own home. And now, Rob was choosing his brother over me again. He gave me an ultimatum: apologize to Jack or leave. I didn't need to think twice. I packed my bags, took the kids, and left. My parents were supportive, and I finally felt like I was free. Rob tried calling, but I ignored him. I needed space. A few days later, Rob came to meet me for lunch. He was trying to act like everything was fine, telling me how messy the house was in my absence. But I had made up my mind. I handed him the divorce papers. The look on his face said it all. He didn't understand, but I didn't care. I was done. That was the last time I saw him.